Good to go. Good evening, Dayton. Welcome to the regular meeting and public hearing on this Wednesday, February 21st, 7 p.m. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. And just as a reminder, this is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast. First order of business is to confirm first item on the agenda is to confirm the next meeting for Wednesday, March 6, 2024 at 7 p.m. And first order of business is agenda item 4A. Number 1, it's a Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, SERPED, Conservation Bylaw presentation. Bill, floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. So I'm Danica, this is Michelle. We are in the Environmental Planning Department at SERPED, and we are working on a regional project where we did a review of towns across the region, including Dayton, who have in their bylaws a provision that allows for open space conservation along with subdivision and residential housing development. So I'm going to quickly present just a summary of the analysis and the review that we did. And then as part of this project, we are working with two towns, Dayton and Middleborough, to review and update the bylaws that you have. So I'm gonna, at that point, pass it over to Michelle, who's doing the review and making recommendations on Dayton's conservation subdivision bylaw, and she'll kind of walk through the bylaw, and we'd like to get all of your input on where you would like to see potential changes and updates to your bylaw. So the project that we're doing is reviewing what's called open space design bylaws. So this is a type of subdivision development that allows for clustered development of the housing sites while conserving open space. So it goes by a few different names. Dayton's bylaw is called conservation subdivision. Some communities call it open space residential design. Some communities call it natural resource protection zoning. So all of those different things all mean the same thing. And the way it works is that when you have a lot that's being subdivided into housing lots, whatever the number of houses that would normally go on that plot of land based on the zoning practices, you just shrink the lot sizes. So it's the same number of houses that just are sited on a smaller area of land, and the remaining land then gets set aside as protected open space. So that's the type of development we're talking about. And as part of the regional review that SERPED did, we looked at every community that's in our region. So we work with 27 municipalities in southeastern Massachusetts. We looked at each of our communities and see which communities allow this type of development. And then we kind of went through and compiled, did an analysis of what each community allows. And we're working on putting together a list of best practices. We met with several communities to talk with them about their bylaw and how it's working for the town, how enforcement is going, so we can come up with a list of what are challenges that towns are having with this type of development and ways that we can address that and solve that. So and now, like I said, we're working with Dayton and Middleborough to update their bylaws, and then we're gonna have some workshops in the spring and summer where communities who are working on this can come together and learn from each other about how to enable and control this type of development. So I'll quickly share some of the results. At the end of the presentation, I'll share our website where you can look at more if you're interested. But as an overview, this map is showing all the colored areas are the zoning districts where this type of development is allowed in our region. The light green, There's 3 communities in that green color. Those communities allow this development by right, which means it doesn't require a special permit. All the other areas require a special permit. So it's 60% of our region allows some type of this open space development. These 2 maps are showing some of the major components is what is the minimum open space required. So a bylaw will often say that if you want to do this type of development, there's a certain area of the plot of the parcel that you need to dedicate specifically as open space. So the map on the left is showing that. The darker red colors have a higher percentage, and the yellow is a lower percentage of open space. So the average is about 39% of the area should be open space, but it ranges anywhere from 20 to 50%, and currently Dighton's is 20%. And then the map on the right side is the maximum allowed density. So not looking at the site overall, again, it's the same number of houses on the site. So the overall density is not going to change. It's just the density of where the housing is concentrated. And so we looked at the number of units per acre and the lot size. So the average is around 5 units per acre, which equates to about 16,000 square foot lot size. So some of the general takeaways from the interviews, like I said, we met with community staff, we met with town staff about how this is going in their town. A lot of communities have this type of bylaw, but only about half of them are actually seeing the bylaw utilized by developers. And we found out that a lot of the recommended best practices out there don't necessarily correlate with success on the ground. The biggest success that we found in communities that say this bylaw works well, it really comes down to like the planning board and working with developers, being proactive, meeting with developers up front to communicate with them what you want to see in terms of the open space and how it's used and how the lot is designed. And that has been the biggest impact on the outcome of how the developments work out. Some challenges, which in our previous conversations with the town, there's a lot of overlap here, but a lot of the challenges have to do with ensuring that the land that is set aside as open space is going to be usable and meaningful open space to the town, that it's not just undevelopable land that the developer wasn't going to use, but that it's actually accessible, usable open space that is going to provide some benefits to the town. Ownership and maintenance of the open space is a challenge, so we'll talk about that a little more, but if it's going to become public open space, someone has to be responsible for maintaining that, so that's a concern. And then a lot of communities in general, I don't think this is the case in Dighton, but some communities are seeing fewer subdivisions just because there's not a lot of large parcels of land for development, so how to make this type of development work on smaller parcels, and then also a lack of understanding, especially with the public, about how the development works and how it helps to protect resources. And then we also met with developers and engineers who design these types of developments to talk to them and what would incentivize them and help them to do this development in towns. And some of the takeaways we found is that having a special permit isn't necessarily more difficult. That was it was recommended in other guidance that a town should allow it by right to make it as easy as possible for the developers. But it turns out that the special permit isn't always a barrier for developers to use the development. Again, it comes down to the planning board and how flexible and willing they are to work with the developer. And it seems like a lot of developers have relationships with planning boards that they work with, and if they've worked in a community before, then they have a relationship, they feel comfortable developing in that community. So having that type of relationship and openness is more important. And developers do say that this type of development saves in construction costs because you're concentrating the development, which means you need less roadway. And especially now, the cost of concrete is more expensive than it has been. That alone is an incentive to use this type of development, just the cost savings and using fewer materials. And they have not found that the surrounding open space impacts home values, like the individual price of the homes that are being sold. But the savings on construction costs alone was enough to incentivize it.
Doesn't increase them, but it also doesn't decrease them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So now I'm going to pass it over to Michelle. She's going to talk about Dayton's current bylaw and some potential, and again, we're looking for your input on what you would like to see changed and what we can do. And then the plan is to recommend specific updates that can be made to the bylaw, and then we would come back and present those again for your review and approval to move forward with.
Thank you.
See that. So thank you again for your time tonight. Just wanted to go over the fact that we are working not just with Dayton, but with Middleborough as well in order to be able to update their zoning bylaw or their OSRD bylaw. So the purpose of this is to be able to improve the planning board's oversight on the conservation land in order to ensure that this is valuable and it is usable for residents for recreation. We'd like to be able to encourage low-impact development use by developers for better stormwater management. So really what our goal is to just listen to your voices, see what you would like to see in terms of your goals for this OSRD bylaw. So we do have a couple of questions that are geared towards specific sections within the OSRD bylaw, just to kind of gauge what it is that you would like to see moving forward and how we can help to piece together some kind of draft bylaw in the future in order for you to review and move things forward. So just a little background on Dayton's conservation subdivision bylaw. It is made up of 9 different sections. So that includes purpose, applicability, procedures, modification of lot requirements, the number of dwelling units, open space requirements, buffer areas, and decisions. So this is pretty typical of what's within a bylaw of this nature, but just going through those sections of this bylaw and what's in there. A little bit more about the breakdown of Dayton's specific bylaw. So as Danica had mentioned, it is by a special permit. It's allowed in the residential and business zoning districts. There's a minimum of 20% open space, which wetlands can be considered as part of that percentage, no more than 25%.
I think we talked about.
Minimum parcel size, there is a 4-acre requirement. The lot size and frontage, there is a requirement of 7,500 square feet as well as a 50-foot frontage. What is included in the OSRD bylaw as well is an open space centered design process. So Dayton will go over this a little bit more in detail. It does have a 4-point design process in order to further prioritize where conservation is within these parcels. A few things that SERPA did calculate, the maximum allowed density, which was roughly 5.81, just to be able to see how many units are allowed within 1 acre of land. Acres that are zoned specifically for OSRDs within Dayton is roughly 10,850 or so acres. And then in terms of percentage, that's about 76%. So potential updates to the zoning bylaw, and we'll go over a few recommendations, and we'll pause for a moment just again to be able to hear your feedback for each of these sections. So we started off first with the purpose. What we would recommend is adding language that emphasizes priorities for open space, such as usable recreational land. And please feel free to stop me at any moment if there's any questions or any comments that you have. That's really the purpose of tonight's meeting.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, wonderful.
I did have a question though.
Yes.
So I've seen other towns' bylaws around this where they get really descriptive about what does that mean to say beneficial to the town, open race, it has to ideally connect with trails, particularly on abutting properties. It has to be contiguous with open space, preferably on abutting properties. How specific do you recommend getting in terms of like saying what is it, define usable, useful, public use? It's one thing to state that, then it becomes very subjective, but then you can get overly descriptive too about defining it too. So I imagine there's a middle ground.
Yeah, so there certainly is a middle ground. There's always best practices for these types of regulations. We'd be leaning on you as well to be able to see what it is that the community is specifically looking for. Each community is unique and very different in what it is that you're looking for in terms of a bylaw or how much space you're looking to preserve, and other things. So that I would say there really is a common ground that we could certainly reach so that it's not so overwhelming. The point isn't to make this from a, I think it was about 3 or 4 page document to a 10-page document suddenly, just because we want to add a lot of text. When something is so text heavy, it doesn't mean that the regulations really are functional. So we want to make sure that we're reaching some kind of common ground there where it's both functional, it's at a comfortable length, and also hits at the goals that the community does have for this bylaw in particular.
Thanks.
So for the next section, we have applicability, so expanding zoning to which conservation subdivisions apply. An example of this would be adding the business district or allow for any type of residential development. So looking for other areas within town where an OSRD bylaw does work. The second point would be removing or decreasing the 5-lot minimum, equivalent to about a 4-acre parcel. So we'd like to know, is this something that is realistic for the community, reaching this kind of minimum? Are there eligible parcels of this size? And what sizes are typical proposals within Dayton? So I can certainly pause for a moment. Again, I
You
don't
mean
wanna,
like for a particular lot? I thought the lots were like
so
really, really small, 10,000 square foot lots.
they are, however, I guess what we're looking for is, are developers coming in and asking for waivers? Are
Okay.
they asking, or are they receiving these waivers?
All developers ask for waivers.
Yeah, it's not, it's certainly not uncommon, but we wanna know what are the approvals like? Is someone coming in and board members?
Most of
are
our
saying-
residents ask for a lot increase in size,
Okay,
okay? That's the word on the street. We would like
Yeah.
larger lots.
I guess
We
the,
would like less development.
yeah, so our question is, so for like any type of subdivision, whether it's conservation or not, what's the typical like overall parcel size that you're seeing for most developments? And then, yes, there's a 10,000 square foot minimum, but it's maybe a lot of the actual individual lot sizes are larger than that. So we're just curious to see like what the average is in the developments that you're typically seeing in town.
But on average, but I mean, on the low end, it's like 40,000 square feet, right? That's on the low end. I don't know what, I mean, the average, it could be a big number, because some lots are quite large.
Yeah.
But at, minimum non-conservation, it's 40,000 square feet.
That was 45 acres, you said?
40,000 square feet.
Oh, 40,000 square feet, yeah.
I don't know what the average is. I have no idea.
A buildable lot is 35,000 square feet
Yeah.
if you have town water. And I think it's kind of hard to say what our average is. It's been
Yeah.
a really
We
long
don't-
time since we've had
Everywhere,
a
yeah.
conservation subdivision,
Yeah.
Might be a good project for you guys to figure that out.
with the exception of Forest Hills, but that's more of a special
That's
circumstance.
Conservation subdivision.
It is, but that's not going anywhere right now.
No.
So, because that's on
And
appeal,
nobody likes the size of those lots either.
which was the
10,000 square feet.
yeah. Actually, I think they were a little bit smaller. I
They're
think there was
smaller?
7,500
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
square feet.
That's the development that's on hold right now, right?
Correct, on Forest
Really
Street.
not in hold, it's in court.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was passed and now it's in court, right? Is that what it was?
We denied them.
It was
Oh,
denied,
it was, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you.
and they filed an appeal. So that's being held up. I think that's our first conservation subdivision in years. Years, and I've been here in planning for 5 years, so at least 5 years we haven't had one.
I spoke with the chairman of the Conservation Commission today, and he's really not that keen on conservation subdivisions either, especially with Forest Hills.
Okay.
But, in one of your other documents, that I have somewhere, you clearly wrote that, it said, a developer could potentially put more units on a piece of land than a conservation, than a conventional subdivision.
Only if it's allowed in the bylaw. Currently, Dayton's bylaw does not allow that.
Well, yeah,
It
we
would
don't
have
wanna
to be
promote that,
specifically,
right?
yeah.
We're trying to keep the town as rural and as nice as possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't wanna be jamming houses just to get more people over here. Schools are bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
Taxes are going crazy. And, you know, the voters will probably never vote for a zoning change that's gonna jam more housing.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. You see a lot of heads going, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So move along. So-
Because we are elected by the people. We're not here, we don't work for the developers. We work for the voters and the citizens of the town of Dayton. We don't work for developers. We're not here to butter their bread. That's all I got.
So for the next section, procedures, how has the review process been for projects? Could anything be done to streamline or simplify this process? So just, again, pause for a moment. If there's any feedback that you have, anything that you would potentially desire in order to make for these, this permitting process, have it be done a little more smoothly, something that could make it a little quicker, a little better. Any ideas, and again, we can always be reached offline if anyone in the community or you have any comments to this. I know it's a lot of information, so we're not fishing for every single response right now, but just to be able to start this conversation is, I think, a great place to start.
Yeah, I mean, I know one of my concerns I have, not necessarily about the conservation subdivision process, but even though that's yet another process we have in town, but it's always a concern to me that somebody, a developer, maybe not necessarily somebody who's worked with us in the past, just doesn't know how to navigate through what they need to do, or just the average person in town wants to do something with their business or do something with their home, they may not necessarily know where to start. So, I guess, I don't know how you can bake that into here to help guide them, but just as, just an idea in the back of your mind, how can we make this a lot more obvious? I don't know if this is like a step-by-step procedure you can put in here, like, hey, if you're doing this, just go here.
Like a checklist.
A checklist, yeah, like,
So, as part of our project, we plan to put together like a developer guide that would kind of be an overview of for Dayton and Middleborough, once the bylaws are updated, it would kind of reflect the updates to help the developer understand how it works.
okay,
A lot of towns, and I think Middleborough has this, I can provide an example if helpful, but they have like a checklist that's like a permitting guide that's like in general, for that developers can reference for like what you need a permit for and how to go about it. So that's
Okay.
not something that we're planning to do, but it's something that we could work with the town if they're interested in putting together. But that would be separate, but some towns
we
do
had
have that.
something similar in the past, but I know it hasn't been refreshed in a while.
Been a while.
Okay,
On the last bullet point about add language regarding designating open space, I know that like Lakeville has, in their bylaw, if it's 25 houses or more, the developer will be on the hook for paying for and building out recreation space, including playgrounds, whatever else the town's requesting that's appropriate for that site.
Yeah.
And, other towns will say to make it accessible means you have to have off-street parking. You have to put in a small parking lot that can accommodate the people that are gonna be using that trail system or whatever it is. So, I don't know how beneficial it is to have that kind of language within the bylaw. But, it helps clarify what it means to say open and accessible. It's like,
Yeah.
there may be some, cost to the developer for making it such.
Yeah, we can add language
Yeah.
around that, and that's something, I think we would wanna talk with the rec committee as well in town about this. But we would like to have guidance from the town in terms of what are the specific types of uses you wanna see the open space used for, so that we can add that specificity to the bylaw.
Well, a lot of times the developer will take that open space land, in his, let's say he's got 20 acres, and he's gonna put the houses in these 5 acres. So the existing 15 acres obviously is wet, right? So then they're gonna wanna donate that to the town so they don't have to pay taxes on it. That's no good for the town. all right? But they'll try to butter you up, they'll say, we're gonna make a little walking trail for you. You know, you can make your own walking trail through the wetland if you wanted. I don't think, you know, Mother Nature don't want us out there,
Yeah.
you know?
So there, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna mention to that point, that is something for you to potentially consider, is whether or not you did wanna include that certain percentage of, wetlands within the open space, percentage. So I think right now Dayton is at 20%, for, we can just go back to
It's
those.
20% upper space
Yeah.
and 25% can be wetlands. Like, I
wetlands.
want that number way down.
Right.
Yeah, so do you want to not include that 25% within that calculation ultimately for that reason, if you're saying that it's a concern to have wetlands being donated to the town?
I think it
and
should be
then it's not
eliminated
used?
altogether.
Yeah,
I don't think wetlands should count, ever.
yeah, I would agree. I did find one
I mean,
town
make
too
it a
that's
big fat zero.
Lincoln,
Big zero.
Lincoln specifically says
No wetlands?
no wetlands.
Okay.
They define the whole parcel as to be developable space. Wetlands is by definition off the table
Not
for
developable.
developable, so once you have the developable space, then we'll talk about, and X% of that is open space. So by definition, they're carving out
Yeah.
all the things that are protected, including buffer areas around wetlands, they carve that out too, so it's not just the wetlands itself.
I'm not sure if it makes sense to increase the number from 20% to anything larger for the open space. I mean, that's just my opinion. I know you said the average is 39%, but like you said, best practices don't correlate with success on the ground. So if the best practice is 40%, I don't know if it makes sense to go nuts and make our number any larger. But I know I feel very strongly about making the percentage of wetlands allowed zero.
And if you're removing that wetland, that none of it can be wetlands, you're naturally kind of increasing the number
Increasing the number
anyway,
anyway,
right? Yeah,
right, so 20% is probably still okay.
yeah.
And typically, those wetlands are also protected through some kind of bylaw too, with some kind of buffer zone in addition to it, so developers won't be able to necessarily touch that space.
Right.
I think one other point that might be very useful is that we put something, some wording in there that if at any point anybody says that there is no vernal pools in certain areas, in order to put the development, they kind of move them on paper from one end to the another, and then putting a stipulation in there that if a developer does something like that, then they will have to, you know, something would have to be done in order for them to prevent people from wanting to do that. I know one development that's been going on now for about 4 or 5 years, found 4 vernal pools that didn't exist in the plans of where the road was gonna go, but then somebody went in and they're there, you know, so now what? All of this work, all the money that's been spent, all to find that it was a lie, you know, and that's something that I would like to see, some kind of wording, that if that happens, then the whole thing is abolished or whatever, you know, I just don't like to see that, because that's stupid, you know, in my opinion, so. I don't know if it's making any sense to you, to what I'm saying, but honestly, I don't like to see that, and it's happening now in one particular development in the town, and, I'm not happy about it, so.
Do you require developers to do wetland delineations for sites, or only if like you know
Oh, they do the
there's-
wetland delineation of their own, you know,
Yeah.
to
And-
satisfy
yeah, so that's the
themselves,
issue.
not to do
Yeah.
the, you know, to actually say where they are, you know, and that's a problem. And, then when they get caught, it's, oh, must have been an oversight, you know, yeah.
Do you
for
do
oversights.
site walks with the developers, like before
I,
construction?
I'm not on conservation, so
Yeah.
these are things that the lawyers
Yes.
have been
Yes.
telling us, you know. so.
Not us, but our
The
conservation.
conservation department does?
Yeah, they do, yes.
Right.
They're involved in the flagging, in reviewing what was done, yeah.
So that's something that I really would love to see wording put into, to kind of protect the town, protect the planning board, protect everyone involved, because if they get caught on that, there should be punishment for that. You know what I'm saying? If they're lying about where the wetlands are and where this is at, then there should be something to, you help me out with the wording here.
Yeah, no.
I think that's a very, very, important part that has to take place.
And kind of along the same lines, just encroachment on land in general, and I think this is Lakeville again does this, which is, you have to delineate, you have to put stone boundary markers saying, here's the end, this is where the open space begins. This, no, you don't go past this point, because otherwise.
Visible markers, I like that
The neighbors
idea.
may start to slowly encroach upon that land and
Okay.
absorb it into their backyards and that kind of stuff, and,
Laser beams, maybe?
yeah.
Yeah, and then the
Yeah.
stone is important too, because if it's like a sign or a post, that could easily get removed.
Moved,
So
yeah.
it should be something that is stationary.
Yeah, we have nothing like that, do we? Right now, I don't recall seeing that anywhere.
Conservation did start, they do now have something in place for markers, but it's kinda like a little plaque
Yeah, it's a
that they have
small,
to, it's
disc.
small, it looks like a coaster. And they have them put it up, they have them put it up somewhere, whether it's on a, you know,
a
They
tree.
put them on trees.
piece of wood or a tree or something.
Yeah.
They nail them on.
So that's something new that they had started doing.
I like the
Which
idea
would
of
be helpful.
calling it out specifically.
But it's not as stationary like she was talking about.
Okay.
And I think maybe, Jeff, we should have like a joint meeting with the conservation someday. You know, maybe bring Mike Mullen, and definitely before we consider any kind of zoning change. We all need to get together and get on the same page. You know, you guys going there, then you're coming here, and you're going to open space. Right, so you're talking to three different groups, but we need to talk to one another.
Yeah, we would be happy to do a joint meeting.
Well,
if
and
that's-
also stormwater is a huge part of all of this. You know, if we're gonna start getting boards involved, it should be all involved, not just,
You should have took my place today at Stormwater, Joe.
I'm sorry?
I said, you should have took my place at Stormwater today.
Next slide.
So I can save these questions for another point. So a continuation of procedures, so adding language to design process specifically for the incorporation of low-impact development when laying out the lots and roads, so allowing modification to the subdivision design standards as authorized by the planning board. Adding language to require statement of the designated open space lands current condition and suitability for public recreation within the development plan. And lastly, specifying application submission materials and requirements. So does this differ from a conventional subdivision? Are the conventional requirements adequate? At least reference where to find the submission requirements, which is not something that we very easily found within the current bylaws that we would recommend. In terms of going back to procedures and how to make it a little more easy, a little easier for developers to understand before going and asking you 50 questions, where they could have the answer a little more readily accessible, is always very helpful in the process.
Oh, about materials and, you mean items that they are required to submit with their application?
Yeah,
Oh, look, sounds like a checklist.
Yeah. Yeah, either like a checklist within the bylaw, or if it's the same things that you're looking for a regular subdivision, just putting in this section, reference like this section, this is, just so developers know where they need to go to find what the required submission documents. And it also might be that you might want additional information for this type of development, like if you were to add a language, that second bullet about adding language about the current state of the open space, what the current condition is, and like again, that would kind of identify like what is the land, is it wetland, is it usable recreation land, is it valuable open space, so you could add like additional requirements like that on top of what is normally required for a subdivision.
Do you find that, since the houses are more compact in areas where there's no septic, that leach fields are generally allowed as, like, to go out into the open space, like, you
Yeah.
can include them?
A lot of
Or is
towns
it
do
the
allow
open
that.
space, is the delineation, things like leach
Yeah.
fields have to be within that?
So a lot of towns will have like the septic, like the system
a community
itself
septic.
on the homeowner's property, but then allow it to leach into the open space.
the open
That's
space.
generally an okay use of open space. There's also the option of doing shared systems too, so having all the houses connected to one shared system, just to kind of limit the footprint of having
And then-
individual, and then you can allow higher density as well.
The HOA is the one that covers all of that.
Yes,
All
if
that
there is an
maintenance.
HOA, yeah.
Yeah, Wellington does it.
You really couldn't get
Yeah,
out of that
yeah.
in a case like that.
And then
It's a shared septic, the HOA would have to be involved.
It's a big shared leach field, is what it turns out to be, yeah. Everybody has their own septic tank, and you have a community leach field.
so that would
Yeah,
eliminate any issues with well water's proximity to the septic, essentially.
It should, yeah. Maybe everybody's on town water.
If there were no town water for whatever reason in that area.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next section, how do applicants prove allowed number of dwelling units? Should this be addressed under procedures? So providing for some kind of way for developers to calculate a certain amount, or something that's a little more clear cut. So going back to not just having a checklist, but a literal mathematical equation written on there to, again, streamline this process. So when they go to apply for this, they say, this is the information, this is what I calculated, and it does help to streamline that process and make it a little easier in terms of applying for these.
Okay.
For open space requirements, I know you had, Jeff just mentioned not necessarily being interested in increasing that 20%. So just to go over that briefly, what is the typical percentage of open space developers have been submitting? Going back to, have there been waivers that have been requested? Have they been approved? Adding
But I do like the second bullet, the contiguous, so it's actually contiguous, and potentially,
What does that word mean?
what's that?
Can you define
Contiguous.
contiguous?
Oh, yeah, we should define contiguous.
Yeah, so things like if there are
It's in the glossary.
definitions, if there are definitions that we can add that you feel would be a lot more beneficial to strengthen these bylaws. we
That was
can
an
certainly-
inside joke. It's already in the glossary. Because we had this issue. Yeah, I like the ideas you were throwing out earlier about contiguous, potentially abutting, or abutting other parcels, open space parcels and other properties, and with, passive recreation possible. I mean, I would imagine a forest is considered open space. If it's not, it doesn't have to be cleared to be open space. Adjoining parcels, yeah, I think that's important to add that language. But yeah, I'm all about zeroing out the third bullet.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll just go over that since it seemed like we had.
how is it now that the open space gets cleaned up and stuff like that? Who's doing
How
it?
is it maintained? Good question.
So that's another point that we have here for discussion tonight.
Good, no uses.
So we'll
It's like
yeah,
you had
we'll
the
get
questions
right-
ahead of time.
We'll get right to that in just a moment. So, allowed uses, so adding language for, to specify which type of recreational uses are favored in open space, so consider requiring a certain percentage to be usable, for recreation. Another point to consider, so I can pause here for a moment, or, again, going back to having conversations offline or getting more input from you and the community, we can certainly do that. Accessory structures, allowance of 10% of open space to be paved or built, as specificity in line with goals and other sections of the bylaw that limits the impact of this and requires permeable pavement wherever possible. Ownership. So going back
There you go,
to
Joe.
how are these spaces maintained? So I was trying to get to this a little quicker. How's ownership been an issue? Who usually takes on and maintains open space? How is that being enforced? So we want to step back and kind of hear from you in terms of how has this been functional in the community? Who has been, I guess, a successful entity within the community that has taken on these spaces and has maintained them? Is there a cost that ultimately goes to the community in order to maintain such a resource? So I'll pause there for a moment. I see.
We talked about it when I met you all to talk about this earlier. Everybody likes the idea of is open space, it's gonna be open to the public, meaning residents and the entire town, and really anyone. Problem with that is who maintains it? Is it fair for the development to have to maintain something like that in like an HOA or something if the general public can show up and break their swing set, so to speak? you don't wanna see that, so, I don't know that we have we don't have any examples in the town
Really?
where they have open space and it's been successful. I mean, if it's open space, it should belong to the town.
I can give you some examples.
Go ahead.
For instance, the town of Dayton don't go around picking up trash. The highway department doesn't pick up trash. They rely on citizens on Earth Day to go around and pick up all the trash. You know, nothing against the highway department, but they'll drive right by it all day and just leave it there.
What's that got to do with successful open
Okay, now,
space?
I was Park and Rec for 9 years,
Okay,
and we had a contractor who would mow all the parks, pick up all the trash.
okay.
I don't know how many years back, quite a few years back, the highway department said they'd take $12,000 out of my budget and they'd do all that. So since, that was quite a few years ago. So they took over all the maintenance, all the mowing, all the picking up the trash. All the trash wasn't ever picked up. Sometimes they pick it up, sometimes they didn't. I'm not knocking the department, but I've actually seen people mowing the lawn that drive around water bottles so they don't have to run them over. Right? Instead of getting off the mower and pick up the bottle. I said to a guy one day, I says, why didn't you pick up those bottles? Oh, they told me to mow the lawn, that's all they told me. They didn't say pick up the trash.
It sounds like you think having open spaces and
So
developments.
I'm saying,
should be
right,
turned over to
nobody's gonna pick up
developments.
the trash except for the citizens who care.
Okay, so your opinion is that it shouldn't be public land, it should be, open space should stay within the development, and the folks that live in that development should either fund or not fund to maintain that area.
Right, just like the trail we have down off of Hart Street. There's trash there. The town don't go down there and pick it up.
That's also not a
But on
development.
Earth Day,
That's also,
citizens go
that's
down
also
there.
not a development.
Well, it's the town developed that trail.
Okay, so you're
I
saying,
was on Park and Rec when they
so
did.
so your concern is about turning open space over to the town of Dayton, it will not be maintained?
Well, it will be if you put money in their budget,
Okay, all right.
right? I mean,
I don't think we have a good answer.
they're not gonna pick it up for free.
I mean, I like the idea of, okay, let's say if I live in a conservation subdivision and we have 5-acre woods behind my house, and it just so happens that it's wild anyway, nobody's really has to maintain the wilderness of it. But if it winds up being like an open park, and all the neighbors get together, and this is our park, this is for our development, we'll either contract somebody to mow that, or we'll all take turns mowing it. But then it doesn't become a town of Dayton thing, and the highway department
Becomes
doesn't.
Billy's Lane or thing or whatever, I'm just
Yeah.
using it becomes a neighborhood thing.
Becomes a neighborhood park, and, nobody's gonna police other people from coming in, but for the most part, it's a private-ish sort of, for that development thing.
That's an issue.
What's that?
That'd be an issue.
That'd be an issue, but for the most part, if
Because then-
folks are maintaining it, then they're gonna care for it, and then, that's why it would be beneficial to have something, in a more private setup, where it would be that development's open space and not everybody's open space. I don't know.
My experience with trails and all of that from developers that do the conservation subdivisions, within 2-3 years, you can't walk on any of those trails. The developer will cut it open, leave a nice area there. 2-3 years later, you can't walk on there. The people that live there don't care to walk back there, so that just goes. And, is the HOA gonna be paying for that every year? If
Well,
they do,
well,
then it's
if
great.
it's-
Other than that, if it goes to the town, I don't think the town is going to do it either.
Yeah, but the thing about an HOA is if everybody in the HOA decides they don't wanna pay to maintain it, then it's their decision.
Exactly.
Whereas if it's open to the public, and then you're harping on the town to come and mow your trail, and that's probably, not an additional maintenance thing that one particular department wants to have. So it's almost like you're better off having your own, and you can kind of control your own destiny.
Yeah.
If you and a bunch of neighbors don't care anymore, let it overgrow. If you want to maintain, a little mini swing set for your neighborhood, that's a different situation, but,
Pretty like you said, there's no answers.
I like having it fall on the HOA, and it's up to them. That's my opinion.
I picked up a lot of trash. Thousands of nip bottles. Bags full, tires, you name it, they throw it in the woods, in the, wherever they can throw trash, they're gonna throw it. It's
You didn't
amazing
think
how
they
much
were
of
full. No, well, I kid.
So can I ask a general question of you in terms of open space? Like, what do you see as valuable open space to the town? If it's not, if providing like a recreational resource is challenging because of the maintenance issues, is it, like, do you see value in preserving this open space just to have more like natural land developed in town to preserve that like rural look? Like, I'm just curious, like what is the value you see in protecting?
I like the idea of having wooded buffers.
Yeah,
Like having, you'll see a bunch of houses in a forest where kids can go explore, you can go for a walk, you can find a natural wildlife trail, something that to me that's passive recreation. It's like somebody didn't have to actively cut in a trail. There's already a trail, because, oh, by the way, the deer walk that trail twice a year. So there's already a trail there. And so you can go and you can explore, and you're not building houses on top of houses. You have all this buffer, this wild wooded area. But then, some of that unkept natural space is already open grass field. So, that's fine too. And that probably doesn't require any maintenance either. So really, little to no maintenance is my ideal open space. That's, I'm one of 5 people, but.
I love open space. I'm a sportsman, I hunt, I fish, I love the outdoors.
Yeah, so having just woods and,
Woods, I love woods. My
Just
last
woods.
name is Woods. Okay?
I mean, I'd love to say
Feels good,
athletic
yeah.
fields, but that just,
that's not,
I see where that's gonna go.
yeah,
And
that's
gonna be
not the
another
same,
maintenance
that's
issue.
not the same thing. Right, yeah.
That's the thing to
It's
that.
maintenance.
I've seen developments, there's one in Rehoboth where you pull into this beautiful development, and there's just, it kinda sounds weird to say, there's a soccer field there, in the middle of the development. I don't know I believe it's a turf field, artificial turf, so I don't know, there's little to no maintenance to that. There's no maintenance really, that you have to groom it, which, again, something the town would have to, or the HOA, it just becomes cumbersome. It's great in concept, I mean, it works there, I don't know who owns that, who maintains it, but it's kind of beating the same drum, right? So-
Would have been better to leave it as a forest. Maybe.
No, it's not, it's like, it wouldn't have,
It wouldn't have worked.
you would have had a road with just a forest, but you'd have to see it.
Yeah, anyway.
I honestly think that's a very good idea, to have the soccer field or any kind of field in there that useful to the residents and to the city or town that it's in. Because if they have other towns come in, they can charge
Well,
for that, and the charge can actually go towards the
so,
maintenance.
the town, right, and that's another layer to it. So, if the town is responsible for the maintenance, the town can then rent the field, which I know from experience is a very profitable thing to do, because there's not enough fields for teams that are playing, because they're all packed in like sardines on every field they can find. But that's a whole nother layer of who's responsible for building the field. The developer, I can promise you, isn't gonna wanna take on that.
It depends on the size of the size of the development that's going in, because if he's gonna build 50 houses, and, yeah, the stipulation is you have to put a soccer field in there, or whatever, I don't think any developer is gonna say no to that. Unless they put them through the ringer on how to build it by putting sand, loam, to make sure that the water never sits there, that can be very costly,
Right.
very well, so. That's, but
I hope that
anyway.
answers your questions.
It does, yeah, this has been a very helpful conversation.
Really?
So far, I mean, there's
Examples
going to
of,
be more, I'm sure,
like,
more feedback, so
athletic
this is a,
fields
it's a
being
good place
part
to
of
start.
open space,
Okay.
or maybe,
sorry.
maybe there are some you can,
Not specifically.
new to us.
I mean, because that wouldn't be something that's like the review we did was of bylaws. But that's something that we can look into further, like if there are do you know where that one in Somerset is? You mentioned, like,
Rehoboth.
Rehoboth?
It is on,
Is that Samus Field?
no, it's on,
I know which one you're talking about.
it used to be, it's not Miller's Lane, I wanna say
No.
Miller's Lane, it's not, it's, Linden Lane, yes, thank you.
If I may, I believe the soccer field is now being sold as house lots.
That's,
All right,
that's
so,
awful.
so it's backup plots for houses.
The soccer field pre-existed the development.
Oh, okay, that's a
Okay.
different
So
situation
it's
then.
not part of the
Okay,
development.
totally different
so
situation.
that's kind of a reason for, what's on the
What's
slide
next?
here. So if a benefit of this development is that you set aside the land as protected open space, so then it couldn't then, like, in the future be developed.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Would you consider curling?
Yeah, so I think, and Dayton's bylaw does require a conservation restriction through the state. I don't know if you haven't had any recently, maybe you don't know, but we're curious if that's something that, like, has typically been followed through, and if it's been an issue to get. I know, like, some towns say it's
He's
such a
nodding yes.
cumbersome process that oftentimes it doesn't end up happening,
Yeah, Carrie's nodding yes. Yep.
yeah.
So we have a list of a few questions here, just to kind of close things out a bit. So we want to know, are there other specific concerns or priorities that we haven't addressed here? What priorities should be specified in the selection of open space? What types of recreational uses should be considered in designated open space? What is the capacity for additional recreational amenities and the associated maintenance? Can the town actually take this on? Should developers or owners be encouraged to take this on? And lastly, who else and how should we engage the community in preparing these updates? So,
Have you talked to Parks and Rec yet?
no, I don't believe
Yeah.
so.
Not yet, but we would like to. And I don't know if it's better, so we were kind of going committee by committee, but if it's a better idea and if everyone's open to doing a joint meeting, like, maybe we could do that, and then that would
I think that'd be a good idea.
make it more streamlined, so we could pursue that. We've talked to the Open Space Committee, we're now talking to you, we haven't talked to, the Conservation Commission, we haven't talked to, the rec, we haven't talked to the Select Board, so we would like to talk to all of them.
Selectmen,
Yeah, we can probably just have everybody all at once, one big
As
joint
long as
meeting.
we have a half a day at least to,
It might be quite lengthy, yeah.
it's gonna be a long meeting. You guys have the time?
Would be a long, yeah, I mean, I think we have the time, I think it would be good to, cause, and I already feel like we've taken up too much time of your meeting tonight, because I know you have so many things to talk about. So and I hate adding additional meetings, but if we could have a meeting where we could just talk about this, because there is a lot to talk about, we would certainly be open to it
Yeah,
if
I'm not sure who
everyone
the
else is
best-
open to it.
Point person would be to organize that, probably.
Mike.
I
Start.
think Carrie and Lisa
Carrie,
could
Lisa.
organize something.
I mean, would it be like,
Mike.
Leanne?
Is that- yeah,
Leanne?
maybe. I
Yeah.
can talk to them.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometime
Car-
late next year, maybe.
Gosh, Carrie would.
I would
Yeah.
just like to
I'll chat with
to
Mike
say,
in
when we
his office.
do have that meeting, we've heard a little bit about like the carrot approach to enticing developers, but some towns use sticks too, so it's a carrot and stick approach, so what are some of the options that might be out there for, like, you've got somebody who wants to build 20 houses conventionally, you're like, okay, you can have the 20 houses, we'd much prefer it be conservation and we get a lot of open space, what are the I know what are the advantages to you, but what are the things the town can utilize to, like, drive them that way, so. Just more tools in the arsenal.
Yeah, we can look into that.
You know the problem I see with these things, nothing personal or nothing like that, but, you know, to build a new home today is a lot of money. Right? You're gonna spend all that money and have somebody living that close to you? not appealing to me. You know, it's a lot of money to build a home today. And to have a neighbor like right next door. It's like, oh, you know?
Everybody is different.
Oh, believe me.
Everybody is
I know I live
different.
in one of those neighborhoods.
You live in one of those.
Yeah. It is what it is. You better
You
like your
don't
neighbor.
like your neighbor, just wave to her every morning.
Okay, well, hopefully that was helpful, and we thank you for taking the time to come and meet us, and I think that's everything, right? It's your
Yeah,
website?
thank you all. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
thank
this
you.
is the website where we have more information about the project.
Okay.
So Michelle's email address is up there. And Carrie has both of our email addresses. Many of you also have our email addresses.
Okay.
So we're happy to talk more. And Carrie has the presentation too, so if you want to kind of look through the questions and think and email comments to us, that we're happy to do that.
Okay, excellent, thank you very much,
Thank you.
really appreciate it. SRB. All right, meeting adjourned after this, or? All right, thank you. All right, so, next item on the agenda is 4B1, which is a Form A application for Constance Lewis, 0 Cedar Street, map 14, lot 9, TAC 1A. And I just want to let you know that I live on Tommy's Way, which is just north of this whole thing, so I'm not considered an abutter, but if you would like, I can recuse myself.
I don't see any problem.
Okay, in that case, please proceed.
Hopefully this is something fairly simple and not objectionable. So Rachel Smith, I'm from Oak Hill Engineering Dyer Surveying out of Rehoboth, representing the Constant Louis Trust. The Louis own approximately 14 acres on Cedar Street. This is, well, you know where it is, but this is for people who aren't really familiar with the site. This is next to the Lynn's propane truck
Yeah, Lynn's Propane is right there to the west.
area. So
You
they
know where
just,
he lives.
so they just want to split off one lot. This is a business zone, so it requires 150 feet of frontage. We're proposing a lot with 200 feet of frontage. And the lot will go the full depth of the property, so you end up with 3.95 acres. Regular shape, nothing weird about it. Hopefully, it's pretty self-explanatory.
So, yeah, I read this, and I had no concerns at all. When I read the application and saw what the intent is here, you've got more than an adequate frontage on both lots, really. I only had one question on that lot, the new lot 7, I guess that's what you're calling it here, which is a 3.95 acres, 200-foot frontage. Is there a plan for these? Is there any intent in the future? I know that
To the
detail
best of
wasn't
my
here.
knowledge, at the moment, there is no immediate plan to do anything with this lot. The
Okay.
Louis want to sell a lot. This is actually going to be purchased by the abutter just as a buffer.
Oh, for Lynn's.
Just to make sure that, yeah,
Okay.
they don't want to have somebody right next to them who might be disturbed by the business use that's going
Got
on
it.
next door. So there are no immediate plans that I know of to do anything with this lot.
Okay,
And just as a reference, this is a land court property, so even though once, assuming the plan board endorses this plan, it will have to go through the land court before it's officially divided.
got it, okay. All right. Yeah, I don't have any concerns, gentlemen. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't.
All right, so, yeah, I didn't have any questions whatsoever, so, yeah, hearing no concerns, I mean, I think we can entertain a motion to, approve the Form A application for Constance, Louis at 0 Cedar Street, map 14, lot 9-1A.
Make that motion.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any discussion before we take it to a vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Thank you
nays,
all.
abstentions? No. Motion carries. Thank you. That was easy.
Painless.
Now, we sign. That's pretty good. The next one's a public hearing. Oh, no,
No,
two of them.
508, then.
5.1 is a public hearing.
Haven't done this in a while.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Couple of meetings.
It's because we're too busy planning,
Oh, yeah.
not acting. Right, Woody?
That's right.
He doesn't like to, Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
You don't like acting, you like planning.
I'm the man with the plan.
Man with the plan.
One more,
Is that too soon?
sorry. Just tested me.
Get me on my toes. Keep this here in case I need it, you know? It's too far away. So wacky with it.
It's a night court.
Psh.
This is a throwback for you.
Yeah, I know.
They redid that.
They redid it. Did you see that?
They're
No.
doing it now.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
it's back out again.
I haven't watched it yet.
Me neither.
I used to love that show.
Yeah, it was fun. Bull.
Oh, you could have just stayed right there. I can reach.
I need this stuff.
Took them all?
What's that? Yeah,
Everything's
everything old is new again.
all the theme song stuff in my head.
We're signing as fast as we can. It's funny, in this digital age, we have to pen and ink sign. 5 copies. We can continue? All right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is item 4B2, site plan review for Derek Hanoud, 508 Customs and Collision Incorporated, 1974, County Street, map 17, lot 79-2, storage area. Sorry to keep you waiting.
How you guys doing tonight?
Doing wonderful, how are you?
Good.
All right, so we got the updated drawings, we got the updated language, and I was told by Mrs. Easterday that you were gonna verbally provide some additional information to us tonight?
Yeah, I believe you guys wanted to know about the estimated time of completion.
Yes.
And then, as soon as it's passed, I'm ready to go forward. I have to get the curb cut from the state, and then, I mean, I could do it, if I could do it yesterday, I would. I'm trying to do it as soon as possible. I have the materials to do it, I have everything ready to go, I just have to do it, you know?
Okay,
And then I think the other question was what will be stored on site.
Yep.
It's gonna be the same thing that was before. We, trying to put the driveway in and expand it a little bit. So I've been storing trailers, boats, campers, trucks, cars, whatever, you know what I mean? We have some storage containers there. That was all existing, so, we only expanded, 50 feet up to gain access to be able to get out of the property because we were, blocked in, so.
okay,
There's really no changes on the use of it. It's gonna be the same thing. We just opened it up, and then we're trying to get the opening to driveway to the left 10 feet with a new curb cut, so we can get the access back into the property on the correct side.
okay. And so, so what we got tonight is, there was a proposal submitted from Western and Sampson for engineering review. Now, I don't know if you had any comment on that specifically?
So that was my concern. I mean, originally it was like 3,200 quoted for me for the plans from my engineer. I'm up almost $5,000 in all the revisions and changes when I had to do with conservation. That's not you guys, but with
Yeah.
conservation. And then it was found that we weren't within the wetlands, we were far out of it.
Right.
And then, the changes I've had to make for this, which I understand I have to do. But when I got the email for, it was like 5,300 for the review. That's like more than I paid for even the engineering. I just thought
Okay.
that was really extreme. The project isn't making a ton of money on it, you know what I mean? So to spend that $5,000 is a lot for, you know, I probably would have never even done this if, you know, because it just keeps adding to the build, you know?
Right, okay,
It's getting to be a lot, you know?
okay.
I understand there's a way of doing things, but I was just, if there's something we could do with that, you know what I mean? I think if they see what was going on, looked at these plans, it's really not a major, overtaking over there, you know what I mean?
Okay,
I'm under the stormwater regulation size, I'm well out of the, conservation, buffer zone, so I mean,
you're well within your rights to request a waiver from engineering review.
okay. I would appreciate that.
like to do that?
It would very much help me, yes.
Okay, because you have to say it, I
Okay.
can't say it for you.
Yes. I would like a waiver of
Okay,
that.
so
if
you're
that would be
requesting a
possible.
waiver of the engineering review services?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
I'm just trying to, I'm trying to budget for what, you know, I planned on this. It's almost, the engineering will be almost as much as the whole project costs.
I understand. All right, so,
Small project.
so gentlemen, before us tonight is, what I feel is all the information that's provided is adequate. I don't have any concerns on the design. I think the applicant's done due diligence and circling back with all the requests we made to the point where he's updated drawings with all the items we've requested. I know we, as we normally do, we go to Weston and Sampson, our engineering firm, and get a proposal for engineering services. And the engineering services, specifically as outlined for the scope of work, are the bylaw compliance and site plan layout, both of which, in my opinion, 1 of 5 people feel that what's already been provided is adequate and fulfills that. So I don't see the need to do the engineering services or to accept the proposal and go through that process, but kind of want to open it to discussion here to you gentlemen to see how what your opinion is on that. Start down there, Mr. Figueredo.
I don't have any, I'm okay with everything.
Okay,
No issues with
no issues.
skipping.
Same.
Buddy, how do you feel?
Nothing personal. I'm not big on giving out waivers for anything or anybody. It just opens the door for the next person. I agree with Jeff that everything is copacetic,
I appreciate that.
but, I can't vote for a waiver. But I'll be outvoted.
Okay.
I just don't vote for waivers.
Okay.
Okay, that's fair. All right. So hearing that, I think first we need to vote on whether or not we want to accept the waiver. So I entertain a motion at this point to waive the requirement for peer review on the 508 Customs and Collision Incorporated project.
I'll be the first one to say yes.
You make that motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
And kept four ayes, 1 abstention. So motion carries.
Appreciate it,
And
gentlemen.
second part of that is we need to vote on whether or not we want to approve the site plan review for Derek Canoe to 508 Customs and Collisions Incorporated, at 1974 County Street, and so I would entertain a motion to approve this site plan.
I'll make the motion, or second, whatever.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion before we take it to a vote? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Any nays? No abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay, we got 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Motion carries. So I guess what I wanted to say was, I'm glad we finally got to the end of this, and you're approved, you can move forward. But this is not just for you, but for anybody else listening now. If anybody's trying to do a project in town, please, if you're not sure, reach out to our office. Carrie Easterday is a great resource. She may not have the answer all the time, but she knows exactly where to point you. I know initially when this whole thing started, it started off with some miscommunication that turned into no communication for quite some time. I know Carrie was trying to reach out to you guys for a while, and the only thing we wanted was you just to come down and talk to us.
Just so you guys know, I was unaware. I had to talk to you first. I thought I had to deal with conservation first, get that done before I could see you guys.
Yeah.
So that was what I was under the understanding. If not, I would have gladly come down.
Yeah, just in the future, and not just for you, this is for everybody listening right now. We have a huge audience of like 6 people. So,
Gotcha.
He's back
He
there yawning.
He opened with us, and you get a lot more with sugar than you do with vinegar.
Yeah, so
That's good.
just talk to us. We're willing to work with developers, with business owners. Obviously, we want businesses to do well in the town of Dayton. But we're glad we finally got to a conclusion, and wish you the
Appreciate it,
best.
gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
So I am good to move forward as soon as I get the curb cut. Yes.
Yes.
I have to write up or draft up a decision, and have council review it, and then the board signs it.
Okay.
So, obviously, you have some time.
Yeah, it's cold
and
right now.
I have
Yeah,
some
we gotta get it
time,
finished
but as
over
soon as I get that done, I'll, and it gets time stamped in with the town clerk, then it'll be forwarded to you.
All right, thank you. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Good
do
night.
understand where you're coming from with the Weston and Sampson, they are very high.
Yeah, it
And
is.
everyone who's had a review from them has noted that,
Appreciate that.
so, but.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Next on the agenda is a public hearing. And this is the legal notice. I will read it to record. Legal notice, Dayton Planning Board, February 21st, 2024. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 41, Section 81T, Mass General Law, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on the application of SSS Irrevocable Trust for the approval of a residential definitive subdivision plan located at 400 Country Hill Drive, North Dayton, being shown as Assessor's Map 9, lots 17-12, containing 14.251 acres of land. Application proposes a two-lot subdivision located in a residential agricultural district. All interested persons should attend the hearing. Copies of the plan are available for inspection in the Planning Board office, 979 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass, during normal business hours. And I think at this time we have to entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
I'm going to recuse myself.
All right, yeah, we have, Mr. Figueredo has to recuse himself, and Mr. Cunha also needs to recuse himself. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right, it's 3 ayes. Public hearing is now opened. Sir?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Tom Morris with Zenith Consulting Engineers. So what we're proposing is a two-lot subdivision, as you said. It's off the cul-de-sac of Country Hill Drive. Large parcel of land. There are some wetlands, which I can show you. Existing conditions. There's a small wetland at the back here, which, and a portion of the rear land is also wetlands, but we're not proposing to do anything back there. And then a wetland that cuts through. There's an existing driveway that comes through, there's a crossing through the wetland here with a culvert. So the yellow highlighted area is existing pavement for the driveway, and the orange is an existing gravel driveway that comes all the way around the loops. And this is the existing house here in blue. So what we're proposing to do this is just the lot layout of it, is to create a right-of-way around this existing driveway and create a lot line in between the existing house, which will stay on lot 1, we're calling it, and it'll be a new lot off of lot, called lot 2. So with this roadway, the proposed improvement that we're gonna do to provide safe access for emergency vehicles is create a turnaround here between the gravel and the paved areas. 20 feet wide with 30-foot radii. We have a detail on the last sheet that shows a fire truck can maneuver through this area. And obviously, fire department, I believe, Joe, did we already talk to fire department?
Yes.
And have they written anything, or was it just a verbal?
No.
Yeah, we have it in writing.
Okay. So they've already reviewed it and said the access was adequate. So we've kept this this work, the turnaround outside of the 100-foot buffer, to limit any potential wetland impacts. And although we're providing a 100-foot buffer, we're not touching anything within it. We do have an erosion control sheet, which I can show you after this, to make sure that there's no silt heading toward those wetlands during construction. So what's being proposed is essentially keeping the same driveway, creating this turnaround here within the cul-de-sac layout, and then there's just gonna be a small driveway here to the proposed house. And there will be a garage off the gravel right here. And we'll get to that erosion control. Essentially, at the downhill slope of all the work that's gonna be done, there'll be a silt sock all along here. And the site right now, there's a ridge right here that cuts through the house and comes down, and this all flows down toward this rear wetland. So all of this work, all the runoff will head into where we're providing these erosion controls. And there's nothing that would flow in the direction of this wetland, so we're not providing anything over there. And this is already a paved street, so that's stabilized, we don't have to worry about track out. There are quite a few waivers we are asking for on this, just because it's a subdivision. Typically you would be creating a full design road. We're proposing to maintain the existing driveway and utilize that as the road. So the vast majority of waivers pertain to street construction, street trees, sidewalks, things of that nature. And if you want, we can go through each one. And then I know we also, I don't know if we have it listed here on the plan, but I know we sent an email requesting a waiver on the peer review, because there's no engineering involved with this, because we don't trigger any stormwater controls. We're underneath the threshold for land disturbance for the town's bylaw, and the state only requires stormwater if you're greater than 4 houses in the development, and we're only at 2. Any questions?
Excuse me. So I'm looking through the package here, and I know we had something from conservation, right? An email, conservation?
Yes, I have it right here to read
Yeah,
it into record.
Yeah, can you read that in the record?
Sure. So Lisa Caledonia. Let's see. She forwarded an email to me that went to Niles. I've CC'd Joe, her as well. Based on the review of the plan submitted and all work kept at least 100 feet away from no filing, the Conservation Commission is necessary for this work. However, in reviewing the application with available mapping, the site does occur within natural heritage endangered species priority habitat. The applicant is responsible for sending NHESP the plan and getting a determination letter from them. This will involve a MESA project review checklist and supporting documentation for review pursuant to the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act and its implementing regulations. So,
Understood.
okay.
Yeah. So that sounds like something you guys were gonna handle anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we were aware of that, yeah.
Okay, but I guess the important part is that all the work is being kept at least 100 feet away from, with no filing with the Conservation Commission necessary. So that's the kicker right there. And as you mentioned, you're already below the threshold for stormwater. So that's 2 good things in your direction. I guess is there, I didn't see anything, maybe there was something from the fire chief. You said you
I
could get a letter.
have that right here as well.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind
His-
also reading that, because it's not part of this, I'm sorry.
Fire Chief Chris McGee sent an email on January 22nd. I have reviewed the plans provided to me by the applicant and have no issue with it as they are drawn. There is a fire hydrant at the cul-de-sac that is in a more than adequate distance.
Okay. And then a letter from Niles that you were referencing earlier was good morning, Carrie, hope all is well. We are requesting to ask the planning board to not send the plans out for peer review, and it is my opinion that the plans have no significant engineering involved as there is no stormwater design and very little roadway driveway being proposed for this project. We are basically just proposing property lines throughout the Form C process to create one new lot for the property owner and to create a separate lot for the existing house at 400 Country Hill Drive. The waivers that are being requested are subject to the planning board's opinion, and I believe the peer review consultant will ask for the board's opinion for these waiver requests. I agree with that as well. And you're right, reading through the waivers, it's really just about the road and how the road is being used and all the normal details that would go into a road with line marking and lighting and trees and all this, and obviously it doesn't really apply here.
Right.
The way that's being used, so it does all seem appropriate to me. Gentlemen, do you have any questions, comments, opinions? You may have a few.
I have
Should I go
Go that way.
this way first?
No, I mean, I agree that the waivers are in reference to the proposed street, but the proposed street is really just a shared driveway with an extension on it, so I don't have any particular questions.
Okay. Right back to you very quickly.
I'm very familiar with the property. I don't really have any problems with it. You guys know how I feel about waivers.
Mhm.
So I'll just abstain like I normally do.
Right. How does that work if he abstains and we have any action this evening? Because it's only 2 members left on the board.
Well, because,
I would have to step down
You
as
guys
chair.
would create a quorum, the 3 of us.
yeah.
So you
Okay.
would 2 to 1.
Got it. I would have to step down as chair for the vote. I got it. Okay. All right, so, no concerns here from the board, but I think at this point we have to turn it over to public input. Is that I don't have my flow chart here today.
Yes. Oh, I forgot your project.
That's okay, no flow chart. So we have members in the audience, we had people on Zoom, I think they dropped off. But we'll start with members of the audience first. So, sir, you can take a seat if you'd like. And members of the audience, you have any comments or questions? If you could please step to the podium, state your name and address, and fire away.
I have one question. How many houses are going in here?
Can you come to the podium and state your name and address and ask your question? Please, thank you.
Rick Personetti, 662 Somerset Ave. How many houses are going in here?
There's one existing and one additional will go on the second lot.
Okay, what's to stop more houses from going in there in the future?
Wetlands, yeah.
Wetlands.
Wetland.
Yeah, there's just gonna be that one house.
Just the one house, and this is going back in towards,
Back towards the dump.
back towards the dump on Tremont side?
It's on the, yeah, if you want, he can show you on the plot plan here,
Can't
sir.
see it from over there.
So this is the cul-de-sac at the end of Country Hill Drive. This is the existing house here. The proposed house is out in the back, to the left of the existing.
To the left of the existing house.
Yeah. And we're not proposing to cut any trees along the property line. There's an existing tree line here along that existing driveway, and we're gonna be maintaining all of that. Same thing on this side. The only trees we're cutting are right here in the middle where the house is going.
All right.
All right, thank you. Ma'am? Oh, you're with him? Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to ask any questions at this time? There is nobody else, right?
No.
Looking for the count. I see See some chats, but I don't see, oh, there it is, just you, okay. It's your solo. All right. Since you gentlemen are here, you have any inputs or anything further you'd like to add? Mr. Cunha, Mr. Figurito? Nothing? Okay. All right, so, hearing nothing else, I mean, at this point, we can vote to close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing on 400 County Hill Drive, map 9, lot 17-12, two-lot subdivision.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so at this point, the public hearing is now closed, and we can deliberate on moving forward with this. There are a number of waivers that were submitted, and in the respective time, we can just look at them collectively. I don't think we have to go individually. So there are a list of waivers, all here specifically with the road going in. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at all those. If you want, you can go through them. I think you're abstaining either way. And you've gone through those. I've read through them as well. So at this time, I'm going to step down as chair and make a motion to approve the waivers for the 400 Country Hill Drive subdivision, two-lot subdivision project.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, 2 ayes and 1 abstention. And still remaining step down as chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 400 Country Hill Drive, map 9, lot 17-12, two-lot subdivision project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. That's 3 ayes. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Do I have to unstep down? Is it automatic?
Now you gotta step back up.
Step back up. Stepping back up as chair. You may now rejoin the board.
Hey, Joe. Nice to see you again. If you ever need anything, you give me a ring.
You too. Did you get any help? Did you get anywhere? Did you get anywhere?
Welcome back.
Yeah, with all this stuff. Well, yeah.
All right, so next time on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from February 7th, 2024. Somebody make a motion to approve those?
I'll second that.
Motion made by Chris and seconded by Woody. All in favor? Aye. This is Easter Day. Is there any correspondence?
Nope.
Nobody writes, nobody cares. All right. Any further public input? Hearing none? Somebody make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good night, Dayton. Good night, Cable.